youngest daughter who graduates from Albuquerque Latin Middle School. So I'm like, oh. So very happy times indeed. All right. So,
Okay.
Miss Tiana,
So
I'm gonna start with.
I apologize that I did not get the minutes from last month sent out ahead of time. So they are in your packet if you need a moment to peruse them. They're on the left side. Okay,
And we do have, good morning, Counselor Bassan, can you hear us? Just want to make sure you can hear us. We'll keep
Yes, I'm here and I can hear you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Bassan.
There you are. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So everyone's got their agendas on the right in your folder and minutes are on the left. And do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. So we do have a quorum. And so would anybody like to make a motion to approve the agenda? So move second.
Second.
Thank you, Barb. All in favor of approving the agenda for today?
Okay.
All right, approved. Thank you. And next we have approval of the minutes. Again, thank you, Deanna, for preparing those for us. They're on the left-hand side of our folder. And if you want to take a minute to take a look, are there any questions for Deanna? Good morning, good morning. Good morning. All right, if there aren't any questions, would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Barb. Second? Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And our minutes have now been approved. And next on our agenda, Miss Deanna, we're going to talk about the Community Schools in Action grants with PED.
Yes, we have several school highlights for you today, actually. So if you recall, last month we had a pretty robust discussion about the PED grant applications and the changes that were made at the state level. So we're just happy to report, and Brian, please feel free to jump in here. 25 schools completed applications on time. It was a bit of a heavy lift on the last day, but they got them in there. So, and really excited to announce 3 new planning grant schools. So fingers crossed that they are awarded because these 3 schools principals are pitching in the 0.5 FTE for the coordinator position. And so that is Chamisa, Tres Volcanes, and Zuni. So we're really hoping to see those 3 schools. We had 12 schools submit implementation grants, years 1, 2, or 3, depending on where they already were in the cycle. And then 10 schools submitted renewal applications. And this is more than we normally would have had, but that's because PED changed the rules in our favor. So that was really good news that we were able to do that. So overall, it comes to $1,248,287,000. Sorry, is that right? $287. And community school coordinator salaries that we are asking for. Commissioner Baca, welcome. You can join us right here if you like. We'll give you a moment to settle in.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. We're glad to see you. Welcome. So as far as the grant, again, I think we should have a round of applause for the community school. Yes, to all the coordinators that are here today. I mean, and shout out to the coordinators in the audience and listening online who supported one another.
Our principals, the ABC team, it was a great team effort, and real quickly, Madam Chair, members of the board, spoke to Dr. Anne Marie Strangio yesterday afternoon in reference to a timeline for interviews being the next part of this process taking place next week. Interesting timing, but here we go. And then hoping to get some word back to us before the national conference, because she would not want to answer too many questions on that during that event regarding these grants. So that is the update on the timeline regarding hearing and getting word regarding our applications. Thank you.
Yeah, so as soon as we know anything, we'll keep you posted. I don't think the award letters go out until July. So, and there is no board meeting in July, by the way. I'm just going to say that. So everybody, I'm going to keep saying it every month so we don't forget. So, okay, great. Last night, there were 2 pretty amazing community school events that we just wanted to quickly highlight for you. So I was at this one, the Lead and Learn Showcase. This was the community school educator showcase of their projects that they've been working on throughout the year. And the Lead and Learn team, I could see two of them here today. So Catherine Wolf Bornhorst over here, Lindsay Wilwall over here, and then Robert Donovan, who's a community school resource teacher with APS, and Sonia Romero Atri, who is a community school resource teacher and also a vice president of elementary schools for ATF. They were the team that led this, and I am telling you, I was so blown away by what these educators put together. I thought, well, I'm gonna run around and, just talk to people quickly, and I was there for like an hour and I only got to talk to 5 people. It was just incredible. There was a videographer there, so hopefully we'll have a nice video and a lot more photos that we can share with those of you who weren't able to be there. Again, I know you were there representing the district leadership.
Great display.
Yeah,
And,
it was,
really appreciate all of the effort around rigorous community connected classroom instruction and the focus on student outcomes.
yeah, and just so creative and so like inspiring. And I mean, really, I didn't even have words. It was remarkable. So thank you, Lead and Learn team, for putting that together. One thing I do want to say about the Lead and Learn itself is, it was born here in Albuquerque a couple of years ago, with an idea on a napkin that Ellen wrote at a pizza shop and handed to me. And we made it happen thanks to the team. This year it went national. So AFT National is supporting it financially. It's going to be highlighted at their national conference at the end of May. And it is being sort of replicated in New York and Boston. So some little homegrown thing here in Albuquerque replicated in big cities like that. We're really excited about that. Morning, Counselor Rogers.
Good morning.
Sure.
That's great.
Yeah, just.
I'll roll this one over.
That works. Good morning. No problem. We're glad you're here.
Good morning. Happy you're here.
Okay, and then the last highlight, sorry, I forgot what we were talking about. I was not at this one, but Jake was at this one, and Nikki Mia, you were there. Okay, yeah. So you were Commissioner Baca, will you introduce this then for us, if you don't mind, since I wasn't there?
Yeah, it
Thank
was,
you.
it was amazing. It was spectacular. And I drove up and there were cars literally up and down the road, almost a mile, it seemed like, and they, they do such a great job there. They have that great agricultural program. They're absolutely connected to the community. I mean, I just saw so many kids, so many parents, so many community members. They have so many tables with different things that they have going on in the South Valley. No, it was actually, they had a band. Paul Pino and the Tone Daddies, if you know who they are, local band. They had a car show, classic car show. They had food galore. I mean, it was just spectacular. So I don't know about your meeting, but ours was really good.
I don't know. Mine was pretty great.
I don't know. Spectacular. And only, I have to say that the only meeting that ever been that was better than that one, or not really a mean event. And I have to just give a shout out to the one we had in Mountain View last year that Danette helped organize. And it was so spectacular. It resulted in the county ultimately purchasing 40 acres of land on Tuesday night for a park, potentially a site for a community center, and 30 acres of open space. I mean, so, and it was because of the kids and their involvement and their suggestion. So that type of community engagement is spectacular. It's just awesome. So just shout out to everybody.
It's great. Great.
Thank you for filling us in on that. Excuse me 1 second.
All right. Deanna, can I go back to the Lead and Learn? Of course, because I'm really sad that I didn't get there last night. I interfered, but I know just from seeing what goes on a lot of places, even though we don't intend for community schools to be separate from classroom life, it's easy for that to happen. And I think for the longevity and real flourishing of community schools, it's really critical that those two things become more and more enmeshed. And community school practice, the more embedded it is into classroom practice, the more we can be certain that community schools are going to go on and on and on. And I think the Lead and Learn is really critical, a critical piece of that. That is really
I think
important.
I add almost on the other side of that for,
Good morning.
as we get to really somewhat of an economy of scale of all of the community schools within Albuquerque Public Schools and the practices, even if we aren't saying, oh, that is a community school. But people are encouraged to implement practices that are similar or aligned with. This board, like, to the point of the lead and learn, sometimes the board doesn't see what the work generates. Because these are things that we asked the board back then to support in piloting or launching or supporting the first time out that get picked up by other people. Homework Diner is an example of that, you know, where they really have become, they get taken on by the institution that really is charged with developing teachers. And it's really incredibly helpful that the ABC board supports that. Things like what Commissioner Baca said, I structured a meeting with Jake's help to help the county see what a community school strategy looks like in a non-school setting. The result were our elected officials taking action and in the influence that they have to purchase 43 acres and a red barn, by the way. I like the red barn. That is what the strategy looks like outside of the school. Because it matters outside when we start looking at the way that we influence where a school sits within the ecosystem of a community. It's not just about the school is at the center for sure. But without the school at the center of the community doesn't thrive, or without the community being aligned with what we need for students and families, the school doesn't thrive, and it's all together, it's all a continuum of work. And the folks that sit at this table have the unique opportunity to influence their own ecosystems, to do things in that way. And the strategies of a community school like the community school strategy, the things we do in a community school strategy, when applied in different settings, also result in things like this. And it's not just what happens, it's not all about the pressure being on a school needs to do better with all of these things they have to do. It's about the community behaving differently too, so schools can thrive, teachers can do what they do well, administrators do what they do well, families decide what doing well looks like. So I think all of this that you're seeing here is just incredibly impactful. We're also working on some things in the South Valley along the sustaining the future pipeline, to leverage some of the other investments that the county and District 2 have really invested in along with CNN to support the growth there, which wouldn't happen without the people sitting around this table. So sometimes we don't always see it because it takes a long time to get it done. But you know, just recognizing that it took a lot of people sitting here for a long time to make some of these things come to life, both in the district and in the county and in the city and in the community. And we've all shifted seats since we started looking at it, so thank you.
It's great. All right, sorry, I'm gonna get my glasses on. All right, well, welcome to our board members who just joined us. There's coffee and food and happy to have you. And we are now moving on to our role in this work, right? And so we've got community partners, including UNM partners, who are going to present to us. And Brian, like to
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you a concept that, as a quick caveat, I am not an expert in. And so we're going to learn together, and I'm generally going to facilitate this exploratory conversation. It's not a new initiative. It's just a way of us refining the work of partnership and aligning systems and so forth. So our role in this work, as it relates to the concept of university assisted community school partnerships, and really seeing the visuals on this particular slide, knowing that we're all in this together. Next slide. In regards to why this matters now, and the concept of really having a shared vision and alignment and a commitment to improving outcomes, as Danette was mentioning, we always, with our coordinators, frame this around what we call the 4 C's. And, you know, Barbara mentioned the classroom and how critical that is, but really seeing how do the councils come into play. And when we say councils, we're referring to any shared governance structure that's in place. And then we move to the third C, which is campus. What is going on our campus to help create the healthy environment for them while they're at school, while the students are at school. And then finally, the community, in reference to what you saw at Polk and what you see even in the presentations that will follow this little tutorial on university assisted community schools. And that as you look to the right of this slide, you'll see a match in reference to the vision of Albuquerque Public Schools with the infrastructure that has been built around goals and guardrails, the profile of a graduate, promising practices that are clearly identified and in place, leveled initiatives that are clear and building and articulated across pre-K through 12. And of course, that instructional shift that is so critical to our students receiving high quality instruction that is community connected and has lots of really great engagement opportunities for students. And then if you look to the right in terms of UNM, that is just some of the key terms as it relates to the mission and vision of the University of New Mexico. And there's even an intentional match that you might see here, but just as a whole, you see that service and leadership and how that corresponds to things that are on the left, the human potential in reference to that profile, the health and wellness, the economic vitality and the inclusive diversity that really make these two institutions just such a natural match for collaboration. Next slide. The other thing that I think is important for us to center in our work, we call it our North Star. So it's both above and what we're aiming for, but it's also a foundation for student success in that we want our graduates to leave Albuquerque Public Schools ready for life and career success in the fact that they're critical thinkers, they're collaborators, they're innovators, they're driven by that growth mindset and they persevere. Those are all the things that university assisted community schools and the partnerships that we have existing and maybe and certainly in the future can create the potential for. Next slide. So what is a university assisted community school? And so this is where I did a little bit of homework and looking at some experts that we have at the Netter Center for Community Partnerships. I know that we as the ABC Community School Partnership are in contact with them and work with the center in the sense that it's truly an organizing framework for partnership. It's really that idea of identifying community challenges and strengthening outcomes for all. And some of the things that university assisted community schools could look like is around the area of teaching, research, service, workforce development, and of course, community engagement. So as you see, and as I see, Superintendent Dr. Duran Blakey and Dean Goodrich here, on our board and all of us working together, lots of really great touch points I think are already happening, are possible, and are certainly part of the work we do as UNM and APS. Next slide. So we're already doing some of this work. And that's what's really great is that there is an existing ecosystem, but there's an opportunity to align more intentionally through the community school strategy. And so really seeing that these are in these boxes, some of the things that have organically grown over time. And those are just some of the colleges and centers and schools within the UNM system that has really come to fruition, whether it's residencies, whether it's school-based health centers, whether it's research and interns at, just the various kinds of things that you see here, including a presentation from our partners at the School of Law following this part of the meeting. And of course, everything's pinned by the partners that are sitting at the table and that you all represent, that we're all in this together. Next slide. So where does community schools come in? I think I've mentioned it just briefly in the last slide, but really getting ourselves centered around the idea that the community school framework helps create greater coherence, alignment, and sustainability. And that the strategy itself, especially as we approach over half of our schools in Albuquerque Public Schools as community schools, will be in the 70s this coming year. you really see that this is something that is a great opportunity for this board, for us as a partnership and as a school district and a university. And so calling your attention in our framework to the navy blue ring that sits at the outer edge of this framework, and just seeing how university assisted community schools can really amplify the shared governance structures, the professional learning opportunities, the strategic partnerships that really strengthen those key practices, those enabling conditions, the people that are working in, and of course, the students flourishing in our schools. Next slide. So here are some questions to ponder. This is a quick agenda item. I really want to make sure we give our presenters an opportunity to share some of the work that's here in action. But really, how do we continue to co-create a future of impact? And really, these questions that you see, I won't read them word for word, but really help us reflect on how we can strategically align even more so than we already are for these community outcomes. So the first question is really student-centered in terms of visioning and what it would look like for our students, family, and community to create, experience and pre-K through 12 early learning to post-secondary pathway for our students. Also, what are some short-term and some long-term goals that we can really be intentional about and measure and really build the roadmap for? And then finally, I'll leave you with this. What would be the role of this board in really helping align and convene and sustain this ecosystem for partnership? So without further ado, and I'll certainly stand for questions after the meeting, during the meeting, whenever you all want to ask. I'm gonna hand it over to Professor Serge Martinez, who is going to talk to us about, or be the first presentation in how this concept is in action. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes.
So good morning, my name is Serge Martinez. I'm a professor at UNM School of Law, where primarily I teach, or I spend a lot of my time anyway, in our in-house law clinic, which is a law office that lives inside the law school where students spend time before they graduate so they can be a lawyer, spend time being a lawyer before we send them out into the world with no supervision. And in our law office, right, we do two things. We have two primary goals. One is, of course, educational. We want to teach our students, but we also are the second largest public interest law firm in the state of New Mexico. I just ran the numbers for our graduation. The group that's graduating now in the last year did over 15,000 hours of pro bono legal services for the state of New Mexico, right? So we take that very seriously. It's a great resource to serve the state of New Mexico. And we want to make sure we're doing it in a way that's helpful and efficient and meets the needs of the people of New Mexico, which is where our partnership with the community schools comes in, right? This little line here at the bottom of the slide, a solution in search of a problem, is a way that we've somehow described the work that we do at the clinic. We are rip-roaring, ready to go. I got eager students who are just super excited to be lawyers. We don't always know exactly what is the best way to do that because we are not, in the middle, enmeshed in the community in the way that we might. People don't always wander into the law school and tell us what they need, or even know that we exist as a clinic. And so it's really that part of the work that we do has been super informed by and supported by, and we've been able to support, obviously, the community schools through this partnership. The first time this ever worked out was 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And you all perhaps know the story of Deanna's, the group that Deanna worked with. But I'll tell you real quick, they were trying to create a pre-K educational setup at Manzano Mesa High School. I'm gonna botch the details, I apologize. I've only heard it 400 times. And it's part of it.
It's a long time ago.
There's a great video that will actually correct all my errors and omissions about it. But through the community school program, Deanna was able to connect with them and help them all get connected with CNM to get some training into how to be educators. And several of them just said, okay, we're ready now to formalize, to get official, and they wanted to create a legal entity and get licensed and whatnot. And around that same time, I was wandering around doing my dog and pony show, talking about the work of the clinic, and Deanna and I crossed paths. And as we spoke, it became very, very clear, right? My students and I were keen to provide legal services to folks who need it. This was actually a group of people who had an amazing idea and just needed some legal support to try to make it happen. And so over the next little bit, my students and I, and this is me, and in a very staged photo. And these are my students, and these are the women who started this co-op. And my students put in hours and hours and hours and hours of work trying to learn how do you set up a business like this? How do we do this? Working with the clients. And eventually we were able to help them create the structure for what is currently, how is it now? How old is it now? 8 years?
Yeah,
7
8 years.
A pre-K program that has been operating for 8 years, has now expanded to multiple schools, right? And has really done amazing things through the leadership of Deanna and the community school program, but also we were able to provide some support. And here are the leaders of that program now, who are still going full steam on that particular program. That's not where it ended, but that's where it started. And we since then have found other ways that we can work together. My area of expertise has always been housing, landlord tenant law, evictions. And Deanna and I were chatting one day about the certain neighborhoods in Albuquerque have more evictions than other neighborhoods. You probably can guess what they are. But as we talked, Deanna also pointed out to me that those same neighborhoods, there's a lot of overlap with school mobility. Families, children who are moving in and out of classrooms. And of course, it makes perfect sense why that would be, right? When you're getting evicted, it's hard to stay in the same classroom. So we started to figure out what can we do about that. Because in Albuquerque, in New Mexico rather, but extra in Albuquerque, evictions move really quickly. It's hard to provide legal services where they need to be. There might be resources for folks who are just having a hiccup with their rent and need some rental assistance, but that also takes time, historically has done, right? It takes days, weeks, you have to fill out 7 pages of information, provide 9 pieces of data. We cut checks every other Wednesday, they're physical, we mail them out on Fridays. Oh, your eviction hearing is tomorrow. Well, that's not gonna work, right? So we started working a 2-pronged approach where community schools would identify families that might be facing eviction because they're having difficulty paying the rents and would help contact us. We could jump in as legal services to try to resolve things that way and at the same time try to help get resources that would allow them to stay in their home. And that would, if we can slow the process, that would allow us to prevent evictions for all the devastating effects it has on communities, as well as obviously the school-based focus, keeping kids in school. That program actually led to some other stuff that Deanna and I worked on and eventually proved to be the kernel for what is now going on at the county level, where they're able to push out rental assistance very, very quickly. Again, that's based on the work that came out of some work that we did through the community school partnership that we created. Well, I don't know, years and years and years ago, right? Just by sitting together and talking about the things and identifying the people that we could all work with. The latest thing that our latest partnership that I'm really, really excited about, it's been about a year now, I guess, but we were able to, after talking about what do we need, right? I can't believe I'm saying this in a public meeting, but lawyers can't do everything. We often found that our clients had needs that were not just law-based. We could help someone with their eviction trial, right? But that's not going to solve the underlying problem. And so one thing that is obvious in my law office that we need is support, social work support, right? The communities that we serve often have many, many needs that are not strictly legal. And so working with Deanna over the last couple of years, We identified that need and the ability that we could have as a law office to serve people, not just with their legal needs, but by bringing in a contract social worker, we're now able to coordinate our legal work with that social work, which obviously has a multiplier effect and makes the work that we do as lawyers even more long-lasting and important because they have the other supports that that we can't provide as lawyers. So the short version is our partnership with the community schools program has been enduring, has been innovative, and led me in directions that I could not have ever imagined. I'm only scratching the surface here with some highlights. It's been a real benefit to us as a law clinic to be able to connect with folks, to identify ways that we can serve the community, but also obviously be able to provide that service to folks who otherwise wouldn't have access to lawyers. I will now take 1 minute over my allotted time, I believe. But does everyone have questions?
I just, hi, Ellen Bernstein, Albuquerque Teachers Federation. Evictions, so here's my assumptions. People get evicted because they can't pay their rent.
Right.
My other assumption is one of the reasons they can't pay their rent is because rents climb. And they just increase.
Right.
Willy-nilly. It's like, okay, today you're paying this much, tomorrow I need this much more. Is that a true statement?
Rent is certainly, it goes up pretty quickly, and there's no law in New Mexico that puts any brakes on that, right, at all.
That's my.
Right, it has far outpaced, increases in rent have outpaced increases in income
Right.
significantly. And Albuquerque in particular has seen a tightening of the market over the last several years, right? So they're just, it's a big mismatch. So yes, but no one ever signs a lease deciding, oh, I'm just gonna not pay my rent. They just find themselves in situations where they can't afford it for reasons, obviously, that are manifold and hard to.
And there is a state law though that says that municipalities cannot do rent control.
Correct.
Right,
So there is a law
Yes.
saying I can't.
yes.
That is my point, because I think collectively, we need to change that law, which has been drafted many times and never actually gone anywhere. And I think I brought this up when we were over at Highland. This is like a big focus in my head right now, and that is, if we really want to stabilize, one of the things we could do is allow rent control. And there's no reason why we shouldn't. Except for rich people get that.
I tried to bring something to council to just give us transparency in contracts. A rental agreement, a lease is a legal contract. For transparency, for if you need to tell me upfront before I sign this lease, even what my fees are gonna be. Because now we have not only just rent, we have landlords just starting to come up with all kinds of crazy fees. To park your car, so you have to pay for your car to sleep where you sleep. So yes, late notices, like how much you can charge percentage of the rent. I mean, we have a state law that did pass on application fee caps. Things like that. I tried to codify that in city law so that we can enforce it, didn't pass our council. We didn't want transparency in contracts.
We need to work as a partnership,
To put the pressure.
now,
Mhm.
so that we can get something for the next session that would make a difference.
I'll take you up on that, Ellen.
Okay, it's an invitation. Let's have a meeting.
Yes.
I noticed that Counselor Basan has her hand up. She's online, and also good morning and welcome, Board Member Astorga and Counselor Basan.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make sure, and maybe you can help with some of the connectivity between Director Ramirez, but I've worked on creating, and it has been implemented, the eviction prevention program through the city of Albuquerque, which is a pretty robust program to help different individuals with some funding for things such as, you know, if a fee comes up or if there is, you know, they can't make a deposit or if they're short on utilities or whatever that may be, there's a way for us to be able to help some individuals. And I think it would be great if we could make sure that more and more people are knowing about this program that's housed within HHH.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm happy to work with Director Ramirez on that and see how we can promote that. Whether it's through schools, reaching families through schools. So thank you.
I would also just encourage everybody, as we're thinking about that, is to move outside of the traditional lanes of how we would say, you know, what we would think like rent control for like A equals B. But thinking about the things outside in true community school ways, right? It's an education issue, it's an economic development issue. New Mexico, and particularly the International District, has so many small businesses. When people are moving around, small businesses don't know who their customer is. The South Valley, lots of mom and pop businesses. When there's constant transition in their community, there's also constant transition in your customer base. When kids are moving constantly, we already know that impacts their educational outcomes. And I think when we talk about passing ordinances or laws or whatever around that, people go straight to impact on the corporate world without thinking about what the broader impact is on our entire economic development for a particular community and what that's going to grow or not grow, because we don't tend to lead with those types of things. We lead with the easy. And I am not an expert in any of those things, but I know that we all have access to people who are. But I think there are ways to tie that work together to help people understand that it's not just an A equals B, but A might equal 42 different things that would make our communities so much stronger and their own outcomes, financial outcomes and growth much greater than what they're getting from that evicting 22, you know, eviction after eviction after eviction.
Mhm. I think for the city, we also have Office of Financial Empowerment now that's new, something that I worked on when I was in equity and inclusion and now I'm a council, was able to work with the mayor to stand up that office, because economic development is for business owners. It's not for the average person or the families that don't own a business. So we're now looking for a building to house a financial empowerment center where we could offer all of these types of services to community budgeting, estate planning. I mean, just all of the financial tools that we don't get taught with folks that are suffering. My district, it's generational poverty. It's not just regular poverty or situational poverty. Like, right, like I got to make it through till this next thing comes through, right? It's generational where you don't have a lifeline. And that's the families that are in the schools in my district. They don't have, you know, they can't go to their parents and ask for help. So we need financial empowerment, the, you know, tools that actually help people, like what Councilor Basan was talking about, and the types of navigating their finances, the guaranteed basic income, all of those things can live in this department to really focus in our neighborhoods on empowering folks to know our families they can't even dream about owning a home, like much less like paying it off in their lifetime, right? Like, so there's so much work we need to do in education. And I think APS can help with that when it comes to our curriculum, even in school around economics. Like, I know my daughter just graduated, her economics class was literally the stock game for a semester. With an imaginary $50,000, and she's going, well, teach me how to get the extra $50,000 first. Then I can understand how to take these skills and use it in the stock market. But I don't have an extra $50,000 just laying around. This is useless. Like, teach me how do I get a non-custodial bank account? How do I budget? How do I, like, all the things that I think we could strengthen our curriculum even in the schools around financial literacy. And I think we're doing some things with CNM and APS that are getting there.
That's an opportunity for our family engagement centers, I would imagine, you know, as a family empowerment center, great, but meeting people or these families where they're at would be in the community schools as a part of the family engagement centers, if that's still a normal.
Well, that's the purpose, but we still need a place for these
Yeah, like
people to
where
work
the family
at.
liaisons are, or
Mhm.
the school coordinators are. I know back in the Elevate days, we partnered with Community Action. And that was the first family kind of engagement center that we had in those schools, and that's exactly what they did, and they had idea, you know, the individual development account programs and things out of the schools. Cause that's where people are.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're
and
going there every
we can
day.
deploy them to different places.
be
I think
right
we
in
still
the
need a
point.
place for people to do the work, but, and I think it needs to be in the, where most of the poverty is centered.
Very good ideas, good work that, and next steps. And so we'll follow. One more question?
One quick one.
Okay, we'll take one more for Professor and then we're gonna,
It's a quick
turn it
yes or
over to
no.
Dean. Go ahead.
So I was just wondering and this could just be my own ignorance, is there a statute or law relating to changing or increasing rent mid-term of your contract?
Yeah, if you have like say a term lease, a 12-month lease, the rent can't be increased during the term of that contract. If you have a month-to-month lease, they have to, the landlord has to give you notice. That's the same amount of notice as they have to give you to terminate the lease, so at least 30 days in those situations. So.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
Just
But
part
it
of my ignorance.
happens and people don't know. It happens
don't
all the
know.
time.
Yeah.
Where people don't know their rights, they don't know they can go to the law clinic and send a letter to the landlord saying you can't do that. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why there's what you're referring is also important.
Well, the slide is missing.
Oh, yeah. Real quick
Yeah.
addendum. Last year and a couple times, actually, we've done this. We took how many community school coordinators? 70? However many there are to, we live streamed eviction court for them. And I did, some colleagues of mine and I did play-by-play analysis of what happened. It was
Yes.
illuminating for all
Yes.
concerned. I invite everybody who's
Do it.
interested to come join me. Let's set that up again.
Yep.
Can we do that for city councilors?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have lived experience with eviction courts. I've been there myself a couple times.
Thank you, Professor. We really appreciate it. And next on our agenda, we have Dean Goodrich.
Right, well, good morning again, everyone. Deeply appreciate this conversation and the conversation that Brian actually started with us. And hope that at some point in the future, we can have a fuller discussion around that because I can see multiple pathways in terms of the College of Education, Human Sciences. But we're here around a very specific program that we're incredibly excited to present around. And I have a number of faculty, not representing all the faculty that are engaged in this program, but some wonderful leadership faculty. And so I'll just introduce them very quickly to you. But this work's being led by Dr. Mia Sosa Provencio, who's an associate professor currently. She's waiting for a letter to become a full professor right now. She's in our Department of Teacher Education, Education Leadership and Policy, specializing in secondary education and bilingual. Next to her, we have Dr. Michael Dominguez, who is my Dean's Special Assistant for Equity and Inclusion, Associate Professor in our Educational Thought and Sociocultural Studies program. Behind them, I have Dr. Jenna Doan, who is an Assistant Professor in Educational Leadership with a specialty in Education Policy. And then next to her is Dr. Carlos Lopez Leyva, who is a Professor of Bilingual Education and the outgoing chair of our Department of Language Literacy and Sociocultural Studies. So, Mia, take us away.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and actually, before we do that, I want to say this program is due in part to very generous support of both Bernalillo County as well as the state of New Mexico, because Mia has worked really hard to secure funds for this important program.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. We're like 7 deep up in here. There's folks from East San Jose as well. So, Madam Chair, the board, thank you. So I created a Prezi, and I'm gonna try not to make everyone dizzy, but it's the only, they should just call it dizzy. It's the only way to really present this as this, you know, bigger piece to help everyone understand all of the components, because we've been working for a long time to put all of these pieces together, and they fit, but they're many different pieces. So I've been working directly with my colleagues and Michael Dominguez's office, Equity Inclusion, to build a grow your own pathway to think about how do we create a pathway to the university with one of our strands of community schools. So we've been working with East San Jose, Washington Middle, and Albuquerque High School to think about how do we build cohorts of bilingual educators, but also educators who are working across disciplines so that they can just be better at serving the needs of
students across language, across ability, across income, students of color, really in response to Yazi Martinez lawsuit. This is really important. So, yes, so take us to our first piece. Okay, so you can see here, we have our, this is the Albuquerque High Pathway Education, College of Education and Human Sciences. These are our 5 departments. And we want to support a group of students to work with us at the college while they're still in high school. And then once they come over to the College of Education and Human Sciences, that they would have access to faculty. They would have access to class shadowing. They would have access to dedicated, visits with faculty to say, what do you do on a daily basis? What does college look like? What could I study? And so we would look at class shadowing across all of these 5 departments, advisement. We have a strong Educators Rising program in many schools, right? High school students who want to be educators. And we now have one at the university as well. And so we have our 5 departments, health and education, and sports sciences. We have individual, family, and community education, which is where our early childhood is housed. We have special education, teacher education, which is where I am, and LLSS, which our chair here, Lopez Leyva, is with us as well. So just to give you a sense of the piece. Okay. This one? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this is a project that is new in the past couple of years. So this is a study abroad, which is we call AMO, which is Abriendo Mundos / Opening Worlds. And it's a new project in the college where we take students who are studying to be educators, and we take them to Spain and we place them in schools in southern Spain working with Gitano / Roma students. And so we're working with students of color who are low income. We place them with teachers, and we're working with faculty across special education and myself in teacher education to help our students respond to the needs of students in many of the different ways that we're doing in the college as well. And so we're doing partnerships we've done partnerships with ATF, we've done workshops. When we come back to New Mexico, we're thinking about place-based curriculum, place-based teaching and learning. How do we integrate the histories and the layers of culture and language into our classrooms? And so that's one of the important things. When we get back, we are also beginning to work with faculty and students in the Pollen program, which is a program that serves Indigenous school leaders. And so we're going to begin working with educators there to think about, this program is in Spain, but it's about New Mexico. And so we come back and we engage all that we learned here. And we're working with the Hispano Chamber of Commerce, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, with generous support from the Bernalillo County, Frank Baca's office, and local business owners. And so there's a few projects that come out of that as well. Go ahead, slide, please. Okay. Okay. So part of this work, so the students that go on this study abroad are now coming to work with me, and all of our students, pre-service educators, so future educators, are working with the faculty and administration at East San Jose. And so we have Sarah here, because this is a community school pathway, right? And so we are organizing an event by the name of a Cultural Wealth Expo that really, well, I'll tell you about that in a second. So we're going to be working with curricular supports. We're going to be working with the educators at East San Jose, because educators at East San Jose, if you visited that school, it is a special place. You walk in and the cultural wealth, right? The things that the community does and knows and all that they bring with them is present in that school. The administration is incredible. The community schools coordinator is incredible. And so we are working with those teachers to create an event that's going to have ongoing curricular supports attached to it. That's called the Cultural Wealth Expo. Go ahead, slide. And so this is an event in September that is called the Rooting Our Futures Cultural Wealth Education Expo. It's a 3-hour event. And we invite the community, and we're going to be engaging, helping the children name what their cultural wealth is, right? Cultural wealth are things like language, adaptability, living in multi-generational homes. Our children and our community, we don't always know how to name those things. So we're going to work about naming them, identifying them. We're gonna be working with the faculty and the administration and staff at East San Jose to also engage curriculum over time. So we want this to be a long-term partnership. We are all in for ever and ever. To think about, if we did this event in September, we would work at the beginning of the year with the teachers. What would curriculum around cultural wealth look like? What would curriculum, you know, we're gonna be working in Genius Hour, showing up. Many of our faculty from the College of Education and Human Sciences are going to be doing workshops and check-ins with teachers and helping, you know, learning from each other. We're all students and we're all teachers. And so thinking about, you know, this is a tree with a corazon in the middle, right? Like, we can only grow as tall as our roots grow deep. And so we want to think about this as a place where we can continue thinking about, you know, bringing together the supports with curriculum, like we've been talking about, which is such a beautiful element of community schools. Slide, please. And so at Washington Middle School, we have not started yet. We have an inroad though, because the principal of Albuquerque High School is married to the principal of Washington Middle School, and he has already committed them. So, so we will be, Principal Modesta Herrera Hernandez. And so we believe that we could start with family dinners, bilingual advisement, right? We've worked with people at El Centro de la Raza at the University of New Mexico. My husband actually, who's an advisor, has been an advisor for a long time. We've done bilingual advisement at Rio Grande High School when I was working there. And so bringing them in and bringing, you know, families, bring your tax returns. Let's talk about tax, you know, if you are undocumented, et cetera. And so really engaging the family to start thinking about college and about all of the grants and all of the funds that are available for their students. One of the things, slide, oh, sorry, no, one of the, oh, go ahead, oh, sorry, no, just, don't worry, see, one of the things that we've been working on at Garfield Middle School in the college is restorative practices, and there's incredible work going on. Professor Leila DeHayman is working with middle school students at Garfield, which is also a community school, to think about how do we build restorative practices? How do we sit young people in a circle and talk about the impact of the harm sometimes we do to each other? How do we mend it? It's really important work. And so I think that a potential direction with Washington Middle School could be restorative practices. At Albuquerque High School, this is where we're going to start looping in our students who might be studying, our students at the university who might be studying bilingual education. Could we loop them in with the incredible students who are graduating with their bilingual seal at Albuquerque High School to work on their statements, to practice presenting, to, you know, could we act as judges, for instance? We could, we just were approved to teach our introduction to education course at Albuquerque High School as dual credit for high school students. So that's one thing that has begun to solidify. And so their high school students can take that class. My students will be there. We will engage, you know, invite practicing educators to have sort of like a curriculum lab space where we could talk about what would curriculum look like built around cultural wealth, built around, you know, culturally sustaining pedagogies. What would it actually look like? My students can practice lesson plans. The high school students can observe us using the rubrics tools that we have and say, you went a little long on the, you know, lecture here. Maybe you could do this, that. So it really becomes this very generative space. We've also had master's cohorts as well. Slide. So there's many pieces that we are already doing. We have research, research practice partnerships. We have mentorship out of our student services center, grad student research. It really would meld the spaces as a really wonderful place to work together. So that's all. Slide, please. And yeah, and then the next is just our contact information. And thank you so much. Yes, Ellen. Hi.
Hi, Leah. So much going through my head as you were speaking, so I want to make a few connections while I have you right here and, you know, for the rest of us. The Albuquerque Teachers Federation and the Albuquerque Public Schools are working to move towards deeper learning, deeper personalized learning. As a part of that, what we hope can happen in elementary schools and beyond is this idea of centering students' identities, cultural wealths as a part of not just Genius Hour, but what we do every minute of every day with our students, which is a huge pedagogical shift. And so anytime you want to sit down and create partnerships around that idea of, you know, because I believe the Martinez Yazzie, the way we actually answer that in a genuine fashion is through our pedagogy. So that's the first thing, possible partnerships in the future. And then we have this wonderful partnership between APS, UNM College Fed, and the union around residencies. And one of the conversations we had many years ago in the residency development was this hope that we could develop a bilingual path. So students on their way to get a bilingual seal would connect with Educators Rising, would connect with paid student teaching or a residency program. We got stuck in those 2 first years. How do we keep track of them? How, you know, when they're in the university, college, is that what it's called? Not to lose them and to help steward them into this idea of becoming a bilingual teacher. And you're doing some of that here. But I would love to connect you with our residency work to see how we could do that across all high schools.
Yeah, pre-majors have long been an issue at UNM. There was a first year forward initiative. Dr. J. Parks
Right.
was leading that, and you've seen some greater retention through some of those initial partnerships, but more than happy to have that conversation. And I know Brian and I had another conversation actually recently, when we were talking about our third partnership around a potential fourth, even looking at community school work. So let's continue conversations.
Yeah, I would kind of add, just like looping this into what Brian mentioned, like one of the things we're hoping. So what Mia shared was our initial work with, right, sort of like this flow from East San Jose through Washington, through AIHS. But we just last week had a whole group of bilingual Educators Rising from Etrusco Heritage, right, come to campus. The idea here, and again, like Brian pointed this out earlier, right, like some of the things you're speaking about are things that can happen when we can have really deep collaboration. One of the goals here is that like faculty will be at Albuquerque High, at Washington Middle regularly. So we are in that like sort of like, again, community engaged, collaborative, like research space. One of the challenges for teachers, right, is we, you know, you're just in the classroom trying to do things. You don't get any coaching. You don't get, right, like your administrators got all sorts of other things to do. Through partnership, right, like we can bring that sort of like knowledge and also ask the question of like, what do you need? Who are your students? Where is this place that you are to help build those things and like bring those resources? So I think that's a huge part of sort of like this pitch is right, just around like this school like network is not the whole pitch. The whole pitch is how can we do this? How can we, again, thinking about Yazzie Martinez, thinking about the needs of Albuquerque, right? Grow our own, get folks in, create structures to like pull them through those first 2 years, whether they go to COHS, and we hope they will. We've got many different like sort of career paths, but also just like making sure that our students are coming and then ending up back in the community. We can do that by like making sure that there's like a holistic research approach to what's happening in schools. So.
And I think just in terms of our work, our residency program has really been responsive to the needs of APS and where they have shortages. And so growing into special ed has been huge, but I think bilingual, you know, those are 2 areas where APS still needs teachers. And then we're working on counselors. So, you know, let's just keep growing our own.
I would like to just add something briefly, and thank you so much for the bringing up the point of bilingual education. As part of the collaboration with Etrusco, but we also had Highland working. So we have 2 high schools working on possible bilingual pathways, and also we're trying to start based on with NAVE, the National Association of Bilingual Education, which is a chapter for bilingual future teachers. So I think there is some movement going on. I think that as we come together and we hold hands and grow together.
I think there's a piece of it too that is either an intended consequence or an unintended consequence is in the students, whether it's through Ed Rising or any other like pathway, that students in high school really start to see themselves outside of high school and seeing those opportunities that exist for them that they don't know. They don't know what's out there unless they have people like all of us that are kind of opening their eyes to it. And just real quickly, the what we call like a pathway, so that they have a completer course that they took like Ed Rising or something for consecutive years. They didn't just like jump around. Our African-American students graduated at 100%. And our Native American students were at 97%. So it shows us that if we create these like very intentional pathways, because without it, those demographics are at 67%.
Yeah.
And so it really does show that they need the structure and they need these paths for them that we can design, because they do thrive when they see that there's a path for them.
I totally agree. And, you know, just last week, one of my students in Introduction to Education brought her middle school brother and she begged, can I please bring him? I said, well, bring your whole family. So, you know, she said, I just want him to know he could be here. And I thought, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So once they get to these high school students, they come and visit, they come and spend time, they're meeting with our future educators, they're following them. 3 of them, 2 of them, follow them to class, sit in with them, go to a meeting with the professor, meet with our professors in any of our departments. Go to the sub, go to the duck pond, they can see themselves and they're with other people whose lives and experiences look like theirs. And they know that they can do this. And so I think you're right. They have to find themselves there, and it starts with taking them there. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sosa.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I was just curious, I participate, I know the UNM has the ECHO program for health. Because the Town Chamber was founding a program for ECHO for business, which has these great speakers that talk about AI and other things that help small business. Yesterday, I was at a conference that had ECHO for education. Are they part of this at all? Are they?
So Echo for Education exists on our North Campus, and I don't know if you know about our Lomas Divide, but it's like an ocean. Now, I do have a relationship with Soraya, who's responsible for Echo for Education. Actually, I have a meeting with her this afternoon to talk some around collaborations. We're trying to integrate more and more with Echo for Education. It would be a hope that we could actually have a much more I'll just say connected, partnership together. And I know Soraya and I have that same vision. The university structures, I think, in some ways based around funding, especially being North Campus versus main campus, prove to serve as barriers, but we're looking to see how we can sort of like shape some of those obstacles.
Yeah, that's some great speakers yesterday.
We have that though for education for some of our professional development.
Wow.
Yeah, and we've worked with the law school before with the Marshall Brennan project. You know, if we were to have a collaboration, let's say with this pathway and bring those students to those high schools to do the Marshall Brennan, we as faculty have worked with those students to practice, you know, curricular supports for folks who have never been teachers. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities.
Just one comment, I have a lot of interest in vocational programs, and there's some that are working on it in the South Valley with a couple of charter schools that are very interesting. I think that's a really important facet. I mean, it's great to send people to college. I know a lot of people making a lot of money, building amazing houses, never went to college. A lot of people. And in my district, Barber County, throughout the state. So it's something I'm very interested in, and I'm really interested in collaborating. Other people might be interested in that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think that speaks to the ecosystem, right? Which is kind of a foundation of community schools, that it's the dizzy. And all the pieces are important. And so thank you to all of our guest presenters.
Yes,
and
thanks.
we really appreciate all the expertise and insight that you bring to us. And with that, I'd like to, we don't have any voting
We'll
items,
burn
but
through the announcements in 2 seconds, as fast as I can. So first, I don't actually know what's on here. Dr. Goodrich.
I'll try to speak very quickly. This is both an information item for you all as well as a request for support in this next legislative session. And so as part of a different role that I play, which is the co-chair of the New Mexico Association for Colleges of Teacher Education. Rewind. I've, for the last 3 years as dean, been very concerned because the state of New Mexico is one of 20 states without statewide educator preparation standards. I've talked to numerous secretaries around this because we have many disparate paths to become a teacher. And there is a great deal of inconsistencies in those paths on how we create future teachers across the state. Now, there is state statute around certain credit hours required towards certain teaching licenses, but there is not a holistic look about what makes a teacher. And so after many of those conversations with secretaries, I had hoped it would be part of the Yazzie Martinez plan. I know there's many competing priorities as part of that plan. The plan is the plan. However, in speaking to some of my colleagues at other ed prep programs across the state, we said, well, if it's not part of this plan, who's to say we can't go on our own and do this? And so I committed some discretionary funds. I had UNM, my co-chair Jesse Chinman over at CNM committed some discretionary funds he had over there, and we organized a task force in this last year. And then also hit the streets and received some funding from both Thornburg and then just last week Kellogg to support this future work. And so organized this task force across all our ed prep programs, as well as had many thoughtful partners joining us so we could have diverse voices to help us to shape this work, to really make sure that it could move forward in the way that's most responsive to the state. Ellen was part of our task force. We had members of LESC. We did invite the 3 different education cabinets, PED, HED, and ECECD. Think New Mexico as a partner, and we invited some national partners just to be nationally informed. So LPI, as well as the National Center for Teacher Quality, all were part of these conversations. And so over the course of this last year, we drafted proposed ed prep training standards based around InTask, but with a much more defined New Mexico focus. And so using a national model, but then reining in that national model where you could essentially drive a bus through some of those standards to say, what does this mean for New Mexico? We reached out to several different thought partners as we were constructing these drafts. We're on draft 5. I reached out to Deanna to get a community schools perspective. We reached out to a number of other stakeholders, Dan Rounds, in terms of leadership and elsewhere, and have a final draft proposal. We are just now asking another group of stakeholders to take a second look because we want to integrate as many New Mexico voices as possible. And so are waiting some feedback from Transform New Mexico, the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty, and MELDOF, Yazzie Martinez plaintiffs, to make sure that we're responsive to all the needs that's been identified in the state. And so we plan to vote on these training standards in our June meeting. And then I actually already have myself on the agenda, Jesse and myself on the agenda for the LESC meeting in Taos in July. And so we've involved a lot of the state. We've talked to secretaries about must-haves. We think we have state support. We have LESC support in terms of moving this forward. However, as it hits the legislative session, if you think that New Mexico needs to be one of the hopefully 31 states with statewide educator prep standards, that's grassroots, community informed, I do hope that you speak to your state reps so that we can move this important work forward to ensure there's greater consistency across ed prep training programs, whether they're administrated by colleges and universities, by private entities, by state entities, or even by PED.
Dean Chris, do you have a sponsor in mind?
So we will be, we're in the midst of some conversations with folks, but also open to.
I would like to help with that if you need help.
I would love
Okay.
it.
I also think if you want to send whatever latest draft, we can send it out to this entire board, and this board can consider either collectively writing a resolution in support for the legislative session or each entity individually. Because we have done that in the past for certain issues. So if that's helpful.
And we've done both and Vienna.
Yeah,
like the
that's true, we did,
board
yeah.
support, but
And then the city,
entity
county,
is
yep.
appropriate for that particular entity,
Yeah.
and also put it on their legislative agenda. We've
Yeah.
gotten it.
So just if you send that out, like your latest draft,
I'd
I'll
love
send
to.
that out.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So really quickly, just the last week of May is the annual Community School Family Engagement Conference. There's a really cute sticker in your packet that was designed by our very own Alex Shoemaker here. There's some extras on the table in the back, and as usual, the ABC team is giving, I don't even know how many workshops, and there are other principals and APS and community school coordinators that are giving workshops. Normally I have the count, but I've lost the thread on that. For this year, I'm doing one, only one this time on Homework Diner, so that'll be really fun. And then the last announcement is that, oh, sorry, we have two more announcements. I'm gonna skip this one for a second. We want to welcome Kelly Davis Ami to the Community School Impact and Strategic Partnerships team here in the county. She just started this week. She is a public health specialist, and she is specifically positioned in the International District. And we're hoping to scale up a lot of the excellent work that she did at Wilson Middle School, and our apologies to Principal Burrows for stealing her. Yes, because they were a fantastic team over at Wilson. So next month's board meeting in June, we will be showcasing our community school transformation stories. You have an example in your packet. I'm not quite sure how we're gonna do it yet. We might have you roaming the hallways up here. We'll figure it out. But we hope to have almost all of our schools. Some have vacancies, so we may not have everybody. But they are working very, very hard right now on these transformation stories. So that will be the bulk of the meeting next month, just letting folks know that that's kind of our agenda. And I think that's everything.
Nice. Any other announcements before we adjourn?
Yes, Commissioner Barboa and I are hosting International Fest on May 30th. So I'll send a flyer that maybe can go out to
Yeah.
the group.
Absolutely.
It's at Filchacone Park, Saturday from 2 to, I think 2 to 8. Everything's free. We have a zip line, face painting, Twistas performing. We have all kinds of, I mean, it's a big deal. We, it is, it's a big deal, guys. Last year, we had Amanda Pettis perform, and we had about 2,000 people come out to Filchacone Park. It was beautiful. It's a new park that we've remodeled, and people were like, I feel like I'm on the east side. It was so awesome. And we had people like, were like, I was afraid to come here because, you know, they what they hear about our area, but it's gorgeous. And so we're doing it again May 30th, and I would love you guys to come and spread.
Yeah, send the flyer. We'll send it
Yeah,
out.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Nice. Good, exciting.